frequencies, no control.
What's up YouTube, I'm back with another great tutorial and this is what we're going to make today. Hope you're all doing well. I prepared another trance project and I recreated a track that I really like at the moment. So if you like this kind of content, make sure you follow me on my socials. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, that would help me a lot. And if you want to download the full project file, including all the samples, presets and effect tracks I used, you can do that with the link in the description. Thanks for all the support and now let's jump into the project. So for this project we are at 152 BPM and in the key of A minor. And I built 3 8-bar sections here. In the first 8-bar we have a little build-up section, then we have the main drop and a little variation of the drop. So the low end for this track sounds like this. So as you heard, we have a very punchy, deep trance kick and we have 2 bass layers here. The first bass layer is a simple offbeat bass line, which sounds like this. Which covers a lot of the frequencies, and to get that wide distorted feeling in the bass line, I added a bass layer where I used a shaper on it, and this layer sounds like this. And this is really important to get that powerful bassline foundation we need for this track. So let's start with the kick. Nothing special going on here. I choose the kick out of my latest sample pack and yeah, just loaded the kick in. No processing here because the kick already is well processed and only the kick sounds like this. Then for the offbeat bass layer, I created a Serum preset, and for this preset I used the sub layer and 2 oscillators, turned down the sine wave 2 octaves and loaded in the custom YPP bass wavetable. You can also use the default wavetable, but with that custom wavetable the bassline is a bit more crisp and clickier. I can really recommend to use this one. Pitch down 3 octaves here and set the phase and the randomness all the way to 0. And for the oscillator B, I used the basic CJW wavetable and I turned down the gain of oscillator B because this one is for a very wide bass line. So if you increase the unison right here, you can get a really wide bass line, but because we're adding that bass layer later, I turn it off for this project. For the envelopes, I use 2 envelopes here. The first one is controlling the cutoff and the gain of the EQ right here. And envelope 3 also controlling the cutoff right here to get more transient and click sound in the bass line. So nothing too special here. For the distortion, I used the overdrive mode here and boosted the frequencies around 1490 Hertz here. Then a compressor, equalizer where I boosted the frequencies around 95 Hertz here a little bit. And we have a phaser in this preset, but I turned it down for this project. So for the bass layer, which sounds like this, I just used 2 oscillators here, default shape, and increased the unison to 16. For both oscillators, the first oscillator is pitched down 3 octaves and the second oscillator is pitched down 2 octaves so that we cover a lot of frequencies and get a nice wide bass sound. Then I added a filter here to cut out a little bit of that high frequencies. No effects were used here. And the important part is to make a sidechain. You can do that technique with a compressor on sidechain mode or with certain ducking plugins. But because I tried to use no third-party plugins, I did that with a shaper and modulated the gain of the utility here. So every time the kick is playing in this area, the volume gets ducked a little bit to make place for the kick. And I use the EQ with the low cut here because we only want that high mid frequencies. And for the sub frequencies, we have that offbeat bass layer. Let's hear the kick and the bass to see if they're working well together or not. Sounds good to me. The kick is still very present, and with the offbeat bass line we get a nice, clean, powerful low end. Last step here on the kick and bass group, I added a glue compressor to smooth things out, making the kick and the bass working better together. So I reduced the threshold here, so the needle is only peaking at 1 dB, and increased the attack time to 10, lowered the release time to 1, turned on the sidechain filter, and because we had 1 dB gain reduction, I boosted the gain here around 1 dB. And yeah, that's it for the low end. The first synth in the synth group is that very wide lead sound, which is really the main element of this track. And the lead sounds like this. And I created this preset also in Serum. It's with the custom wavetable again, but it's basically just a default shape, a little bit distorted, and it's really helping that sound to really stand out in the mix. So I increased the unison here, and for the oscillator B, I did no changes here. The envelope 1 is controlling the cutoff of the MG low 12 filter, and for the FX we have a filter, and here we have the cutoff, which is controlled by the velocity. Then we have a delay on normal mode and different delay times on left and right channel, but you cannot really tell the difference because we are in normal mode. If you want an even wider sound, you can set that on ping pong mode and play around with the settings. Then I added a hyperdimension for more wideness and a little bit distortion. Then we have the distortion tool where I boosted the frequencies until 330 Hertz. And then a compressor at the end to boost all the effects a little bit, and then another EQ to shape the sound. And a really important step for the main lead is the MIDI notes, because I played a 2-note chord pattern here. With that 2-note chords, you're adding a lot of warmth to the lead sound, which is very important. So for example, when I use only a 1-note pattern here, it sounds okay, but you lose the feeling of the track and the warmth. And for the processing of the lead sound, I used the utility to boost the width a little bit and the EQ to cut out the low frequencies and boosted the frequencies around 6800 Hertz here. And the last thing I added here is the OTT multi-band dynamics to compress the frequencies in the high and the mid areas a bit more. So without the OTT and with, so you can really hear it sounds more compressed and the sound is much more present in the mix. And the second synth here is a very simple pad, which is just supporting the main lead and goes along with the Reese bass. And this pad sounds like this. So it's important sound to create variation in the track and keeps the listener listening to your track, because the ear needs a variation every 8 bar. So also an important synth here. I did a simple Serum preset. I used 2 oscillators here. The first one is a hyper and the second one is a basic shape wavetable. And I used the sub mode on square here to add more texture in the sound. Increase the unison of both oscillators. And for the envelope 1, I used a longer attack time to let the sound smoothly coming in. Added a LFO here and modulated the panning of the noise here to get a nice wide texture in the sound. And then a band 24 filter to focus really on the high mids here. For the FX, I add hyperdimension for more unison wideness and a phaser to get a little bit of distortion, a chorus for even more wideness, then an EQ where I took out some of the mid frequencies, a compressor on multi-band mode to boost the highs a little bit, then a delay on ping pong mode, at the end a reverb, and a little equalizer to take out the low frequencies and boosted the mids again here a little bit. And then the pad sounds like this. Gave it a little sidechain to the kick and then a compressor to catch the peaks. Just flattened the sound a little bit, then another EQ to take out the lows. That's it for the synth group. And yeah, for the drums I added a simple open head here. And yeah, I choose a very bright, distorted open head with the long tail because I want to achieve very powerful drums. Then a close head loop. Then a right loop. And at the end a clap. Here I used also a clap with a long tail. And for the clap I added a reverb and a EQ to take out the low frequencies and boosted the high frequencies here a little bit. And together the drums sounding like this. And on the drum group I added a saturation and a drum bass, only with 10% wetness to get a bit more distortions in the drums. So for the vocals, I just added a vocal phrase that fits in the gap here, right in front of the first drop. And the vocals sounding like this.
Lost in frequencies, no control.
Yeah, very basic vocal phrase. And yeah, and for the build-up, I repeat the beginning of the phrase a few times with an auto filter that is modulating the high cut. And that's a nice, easy technique to build tension for the build-up and also introducing the vocals.
Lost in frequencies, frequencies, frequencies. Lost in frequencies, frequencies, frequencies. Lost in frequencies, frequencies, frequencies. Lost in frequencies, no control.
For the processing, I just added a EQ to take the lows out and a little bit of the high frequencies, then a compressor to boost the gain a little bit, and an auto filter. And for the FX, I just used the transition sound here. And a little crash. And that's already it for this project. So as you can see, we have only 20 tracks here, and the rest is really the arrangement. And that's really a thing that I discuss a lot, because the best tracks really have the fewest tracks in the DAW. So if you find yourself tweaking around 100 different tracks and it's still sounding not nice, you should ask yourself if you use the right sounds, if you really have the right idea, and if you did a nice arrangement. So I hope you learned something new. I had really fun to recreate the sounds. And if you want to use any sounds out of this project for your own production, or you just want to play around with the presets and the effect racks I used, you can download the full project file with the link in the description. Also check out my other templates and my sample packs on the YPP store. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, make sure you follow me on my socials. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, that would help me a lot. And now we listen to the full track. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
Frequencies, no